Today, we are thrilled to welcome Stephanie, the lead of process automation at Redirect Consulting. With a wealth of experience in both technical and automation teams, Stephanie plays a pivotal role in Redirect's RPA practice, overseeing everything from designing innovative solutions to implementing projects and providing ongoing support to clients. Join us as Stephanie shares her expertise and experiences, offering a unique perspective on the future of automation in real estate. Let's get started. Hey, Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Excited for today's topic, which is all things automation that affects both large companies, small organizations to really get ahead of the competition. But before we dive into what automation is, specifically RPA, would love to hear about your background and how you fell into this space.
Absolutely. So my background is a little bit unusual in the real estate industry. I am a trained opera singer. So I went to conservatory for studying voice and have been singing most of my life, and really found my way into the real estate industry by accident. I had worked in the sales capacity for a few companies previously when I first started working at Redirect. So I actually joined Redirect in the sales department after a few years of learning about the kinds of services that we offer and the kinds of problems that are facing the real estate industry. I got much more interested in being on the delivery side of things. So I moved over a few years ago into project management for both our technical team and our automations team. And I was really fascinated by the work we're doing in the RPA, the Robotic Process Automation space. And so a few years ago, about coming up on 2 years now, I took over the management of our RPA team.
Yeah, let's dive into a little bit more about RPA. I hear a lot of terms today, especially folks who are not as familiar with technology. They hear data analytics, AI, RPA. What is RPA? How does it differ from AI?
Absolutely. So as I said, RPA, that stands for Robotic Process Automation. A lot of people, when they hear that, they think, we're going to deliver them a little robot who's going to sit on their desk and do their work for them. So just to clear that up, this is not a physical robot. This is really at its core, it's software that manipulates other software. So things that we are doing on the computer every day, things like interacting with different applications, interacting with emails and email attachments, taking different actions based on different cues, all of this happening on our computer. That is the kind of thing that RPA will handle for you. So I like to say that people should think about it like they're hiring a junior staff member, where it's somebody who can do basically anything that's happening on the computer. They can carry out instructions of varying levels of complexity, but they're only as good as the instructions they've gotten, right? They're not yet to the point of using a lot of their own independent judgment. They're not generating their own ideas. They're carrying out instructions exactly the way you've given them. So that's different, of course, from AI, where artificial intelligence, I think the key word there is intelligence, right? AI right now is all about generating, is all about, LLMs are interacting with people like people, which is pretty different from a process automation that's very focused on the specific process you've trained it for.
Got it. Yeah, it's pretty clear. And I was actually looking at some examples myself before today. And let me know if this makes sense. So say if someone's a real estate agent and they have their own website where they intake on their form, maybe a potential client with their first name, email, and a property that they're interested in, RPA could help to automate taking that information, pulling information on the property itself, and sending that back to that individual. Whereas AI may look at, say, the zip code of that address and then recommend other properties for the client. So one follows like a set of instructions and the other, like you said, generates something different.
Yeah. And I think also you see in a lot of real estate contexts, you're seeing the introduction of chatbots where people can ask their questions about a specific property or, zip code, like you were saying, where if you're trying to have that sort of conversation or generative capacity, you're going to be looking more towards AI. But absolutely, the use case you described where somebody could submit a form online and based on their answers receive different types of information, receive an automated email response, even setting up meetings, something like that. Yeah, a lot of that can be handled by RPA. I do also want to point out they're not mutually exclusive. So there are plenty of opportunities where much of a process can be handled by RPA, but you can incorporate artificial intelligence, you can incorporate AI tools in an RPA process. So they really can work hand in hand. No problem.
So, Stephanie, I could imagine there's a ton of benefits when it comes to RPA, possibly like saving time if it's replicating tasks like a junior assistant would. Is that true? And what are some other benefits does RPA have?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. So you're absolutely right. Saving time is one of the big benefits of automating tasks. I think that's the one that people mostly think of is getting things done faster when you offload some of those repetitive, tedious, lower value tasks that still have to get done, but it's not necessarily worth taking somebody's whole day or whole week to do a data entry task or, copying and pasting from multiple websites or something like that. So I think in terms of speed, you get two benefits in terms of time. Not only is the process no longer being done by a person, so you get all that time back on the person's plate, but it's also the process just gets done faster. So oftentimes bots can move faster or do things in a way that's more efficient than a person can do. Of course, bots don't sleep, so they can do a process overnight if they need to. Bots don't take sick days or weekends. The scheduling is much easier. So where something might take a person a couple of days to accomplish because they're doing it at human speed, they're doing it while also balancing all of their other tasks, a bot can certainly do that right away, and it's not going to be interrupted for sleeping or taking breaks or doing other things that are higher value and urgent and have to get done by a person. The other major benefit is a reduction of risk. So it's very easy when you're doing a repetitive, monotonous process to zone out, right? If you're entering numbers over and over and over again, it's so easy to mistype something and not notice. Or if you're copying and pasting from one screen to another, it's really easy to copy the same thing twice or paste into the wrong field or something like that, where a bot is not going to make a human error, right? It's called human error for a reason. So I think saving time, having your processes happen more quickly, and resting assured that there's no human error involved, so reducing risk, I think are some of the biggest benefits of automating.
They're all tremendous call outs. And I've been guilty of having fat fingers where I look back at the data, I'm like, that is not possible as a price. 10 million? That can't be. So
Exactly.
It's great that RPA can resolve that. And you also a little bit touched on it, how it frees up, say, like a team's time. So if one portion of their roles isn't so monotonous or doing the same tasks over and over that aren't really adding value to, say, bottom line, maybe they can now be freed up to do possibly more sales, which can end up increasing revenue for a business.
Absolutely. I think that's a really great point. In a lot of people's workday, they're balancing a variety of tasks that all need to get done, but some of them are much higher value than others. Some of them, as you mentioned, can impact the bottom line of the business, and others just, they have to get done, but it doesn't really need to get done by a human. And the brain power that everybody is spending on those monotonous tasks, on those, data entry, entering transactions into their system, or even, one of our most common automated tasks is the bank reconciliation that many of our clients do month over month or even week over week. That kind of thing. There are certain pieces of it that are really high value, but most of it is simply comparing a bank statement to what you see in your system and saying, yes, okay, do I see it here? All right, I'll click it here. And it takes hours and hours of work that literally is just, do I see it over here? Okay, I'll click it over here. And by the time you get to the end of that process where there are exceptions left over or there are things that need investigation, you've spent so many hours already on the monotonous part, on the doing the same action over and over again, you're probably fried. It leaves you so much more brain power. It frees up the team, as you said, to really focus on the stuff that has to get done by a human, that really benefits from human attention, human judgment. So in the case of something like a bank reconciliation, you are able to much more quickly identify repeated mistakes or patterns of missed payments, things like that, where if you're spending all of your time simply checking the reconciled button over and over again, it doesn't really leave you that time and that attention left over to catch that sort of thing or spend your time on investigating what actually needs a human.
So that's a great point. It allows you to take that next level of using your mind for other related tasks. And now taking a little bit of a shift back. So you've been in the space for a period of time. You switched from sales, other roles over to RPA. How has RPA shaped the industry of real estate?
We know that real estate as an industry is often a little bit hesitant, a little bit slow to adopt new technology. Oftentimes, real estate companies like to wait until something is really proven to adopt it. But I think over the last, say, year or 18 months, the industry has really woken up to the power of automation and has seen the light in terms of all the time saving, in terms of, employee satisfaction, reduction in errors, all that sort of thing. So I would say that we are, I think, really seeing the upswing of automation adoption. And I think from here, I think we're going to see over the next, let's say, 5 years, a really strong impact of automation in the industry.
Agreed. And you mentioned how real estate industry, a lot of teams, organizations like to see things proven before they jump into it. I can definitely attest to that. There's definitely not too many early adopters. But what has been real benefit is especially like ChatGPT coming out about 2 years ago, not just in the use cases of using ChatGPT, but in general, the overall theme of people having more of a trust towards technology.
Absolutely. As it's become more mainstream to have automation, to have AI more in the conversation, to see it being adopted by so many other industries, I think has really increased the appetite within the real estate industry to say, okay, how do I get in on this? How can this benefit my business?
Now someone's thinking their organization that they want to use automation, RPA, but they don't know where to start. What are some methods or signals they can take to know where they should plug in RPA?
Absolutely. Like we were just saying, now that AI and RPA have really gone mainstream, it's very tempting to say, let me just automate something fast so that I can be a part of this, so that I can say, oh, look, we are incorporating automation into our business. And that's a really great point. It's not just about automating, it's about finding the right opportunity to automate. So automation for automation's sake is all well and good, but how do you know what is actually going to give you a good ROI? What are the processes that could really benefit? So I like to think of the green flags for automation, which you might think are, red flags in a manual process. I like to look at it from the positive perspective to say, what are the green flags that say this process that is manual and certainly not optimized in its current state is going to give me a great ROI, is going to be a wonderful opportunity to automate. So first and foremost, is this a process that happens frequently, right? If this is something that happens once a year and it takes an hour, it's really annoying. I'm sure whoever is doing it today would love to get that off their plate and hand it over to a bot. It's probably not worth it if it's only happening for a short time so infrequently. But if there are things that are happening quarterly, monthly, weekly, even daily, we have, some automations, for example, our bank to book Automation, which is about cash review, bank account review, that sort of thing, happens every morning. Somebody's spending, a couple of hours a day maybe on these tasks. That's definitely something that should jump out at you as a potential to automate. Is it computational? Right? As I said, we're thinking of this like a junior staff member. So it has to be something that you can make a workflow for. Ideally, if it's mostly using direct kind of if-then decision trees or mostly using numbers, that sort of thing. Bots love numbers. Is it monotonous, right? Is it something that is happening the same way over and over again that people hate, that are prone to human error, that kind of thing? That's going to get you some benefit in accuracy. That's going to get you benefit in your employees' job satisfaction. So, there's some other intangible benefits as well. Does it use multiple applications, right? We mentioned if you're looking at two screens and you're taking data from one and you're putting it on the other, you should probably let a bot handle that for you. Rule-based, right? You have to, as I mentioned, you have to be able to train a bot to be able to make the decisions it would have to make. So if there's not too much human judgment required, you have to be able to say, all right, in these scenarios, behave in this way. I think all of those combine. You can probably think of a ton of processes that we're doing every day. Maybe this is making you think, oh, wow, I had no idea how much of my workload could be automated. But I think these are the sort of key indicators that this would be a great opportunity to streamline this process and to hand over some, if not all of it, to an automation bot.
Incredible. So much value there. And it's measurable as well.
Absolutely.
You said a lot of great KPIs there in terms of revenue, reduction in risk, data accuracy, and more. And I think it's really useful for organizations to think that way, not just, is this a pain point, a thorn that's annoying, but I don't do as frequently, but having something that's more measurable.
I think I would also say, in terms of knowing when it's the right time to automate a given process, one of the things that we talked about earlier was when a process takes longer than it should, an opportunity like getting your reports out the door, right? If you're doing monthly management statement reporting or something like that, if there's a specific due date and your team has to start 3 weeks early because it takes so long to run all the reports and review and aggregate and, get approval from everyone who needs to approve whatever rounds it has to go through. If you're having to start significantly earlier than the due date, even though the time of actually carrying out the task is not so long, I would say that's a great opportunity to review and say, if we automated a few of these steps, how much less time, how many fewer days would this process take? Or if some of this were running overnight, could we cut out a couple of days worth of us being involved in this process, right? Oftentimes, the reporting process has to start weeks early to ensure that everything gets out the door on time. That's a great opportunity to say, wouldn't we love to spend a couple of days on this instead of a couple of weeks? Which pieces can we hand off to an automation? What are the parts that take longest that are just, updating runtime options and clicking run report now and downloading it, that sort of thing, where you can train a bot to know how to run a report and know how to update those runtime options. And suddenly, instead of you sitting there clicking run report, you come into work in the morning and everything's downloaded already. And you can skip right to the step of reviewing the actual data and seeing if there are any updates that need to be made, or just skip right to the approval.
Being able to skip right into the action items that are needed. Now, I do have a question for you, Stephanie. So I can imagine if an industry is shifting more towards RPA, there could be some friction points as well, because it seems like you do have to audit your own business. And there may be some employees that say, hey, is my job going to be automated? What's happening here? So do you see these as a challenge? And if so, what are some ways to overcome that?
I've definitely heard that anxiety from people we've talked to about automation. I'm spending so much of my day doing these tasks. What happens when we automate these tasks? But you and I have already talked about a few different cases where what we're trying to do is give people their time back for the tasks that they're not currently able to get to, that require a human looking at data, that require a human making value judgments, that instead of spending your time on these tasks that a bot can do, wouldn't you rather be able to put your skills, your critical thinking, your human judgment into what you're doing each day and have higher value work? So I think it is often the people who are the most anxious ahead of time about, oh, is this going to in some way replace me, who actually get the most job satisfaction back and say, wow, these things that I always had on my to-do list and never found the time for, now I'm finally getting to them. And it turns out this is really helpful. I'm able to, do a better job at my job when I'm not spending time on the really boring stuff.
That's very critical. And like you said, having higher value and can improve overall employee satisfaction. So now at this stage, I'd love to dive into specific examples of where you've seen RPA be beneficial in the real estate industry.
Absolutely. I mentioned a few of our sort of highest hitting RPA projects already. Everybody hates bank reconciliation. We're doing a ton of those. I mentioned the reporting process. I mentioned data entry. I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into what we call the bank to book automation, which is part of the sort of treasury management, cash management side of automation tasks. What we're doing for a bunch of our clients is we've automated the daily account review process. Many of our clients have one dedicated team member or a few dedicated team members who come into work every day, and they have to review the activity that's taken place, of course, in their bank accounts and make sure that it accurately is reflected in their system. Right now, as a manual process, this is somebody sitting down at their desk, logging into the bank, reviewing all the line items, and comparing them to make sure they're already captured, or doing manual data entry if they haven't yet been captured. First of all, that's a pretty boring way to spend your morning. It's also really easy to miss something. Something could get double entered by accident, really easy to miss key, right? There's tons of risk. It's not only boring, but it's risky. By automating that process, first of all, we're giving people their mornings back. We are eliminating the data entry step and allowing people to just do review, right? If everything is already entered by the time you come in, you're able to analyze the different activity in your accounts more easily. You're able to catch anything that's missing, anything that's long overdue, easier to find patterns if you're skipping right to that analysis step. So I think it's a good example of a lot of the things we've been talking about, this bank to book automation, cash management automation that really allows people to go that extra step past simply recording into analyzing, finding patterns, taking necessary action.
Example. And I bet one that's applicable across many parts of real estate. What are particular, say, clients that have benefited from this? Is it property managers or other areas within real estate?
Yeah, I think property managers are finding it very helpful. Things like this that are more accounting based are pretty broadly applicable. So I think, there are small differences in how obviously different areas of our clientele conduct their business depending on what their focus is. But especially these back office accounting tasks are really broadly applicable across the board.
Got it. And just as being a bit of a geek myself, how does RPA work in the back end? Is it coding things up? Is it a drag and drop? Is it something more complicated? Like how has it evolved over the last, I guess, maybe decade or years where someone who's a specialist in RPA utilizes or develops a certain flow?
I do think it has gotten much friendlier over the last few years. Our team is really incredible. The software that we use is UiPath, but there are various softwares out there for automation. So certainly, as the softwares get more sophisticated, they do get a little bit easier to work with. But yes, there's a variety of different options. There are more coding heavy projects that we're doing. I think it really depends on the software you're using and the project you're trying to automate.
Got it. Yeah, a previous company I worked at, there was a monthly report that would go out to both the board, but also another one that would go out to customers. And it would take a team a full week at times to put everything together, get the numbers, ping people on Teams, and then using UiPath, connecting to the databases as well, that was able to be automated with just, I think, less than 5 minutes. So it's incredible, the power. Great. Stephanie, what are some unexpected benefits of RPA?
Great question. So I think everyone knows that automating a process will make the process happen faster, but something a lot of people don't think about is the reduction of risk, especially these kind of monotonous projects that are great to hand off to a bot. It's really easy to zone out. It's really easy for a person to make a little mistake and not notice they've done that. So introducing a bot into your processes can greatly reduce the risk of human error.
Stephanie, what real estate problem do you solve today using technology?
One of our most popular automations that we are using today for our real estate clientele is what we call our bank to book automation. This is a daily automation to handle cash review, cash management. So this is part of our sort of treasury management suite of functions where we are giving our clients an accurate and up-to-date picture of the activity in each of their accounts on a daily basis.
Stephanie, what excites you about the future of technology in real estate?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see real estate companies adopt technology more and integrate it more into their operations. I think it will free up the industry, free up teams to stop doing some of the really tedious work and do more high value work that allows real estate companies to reintroduce the personal touches. I think when real estate is more personal, everybody is happier, tenants are happier, and it allows for better business practices.
Stephanie, for those that want to learn more about RPA and how it could benefit their business, how would they reach out to you and find you as well as Redirect?
Absolutely. You can reach out to us on our website, redirectconsulting.com. And if you would like, you can go redirectconsulting.com/contact. Nice and simple, and fill out a contact form to tell us a little bit about what you're looking for.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I feel like I've learned a tremendous amount, and I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. This was a wonderful conversation.